Welcome to TestGeek Exam Prep's Series 7 online video course. My name is Brian Lee. I will be with you for all of our wonderful content for the Series 7. The first thing I'd like to start with, the first thing I always start with every class, is just a brief description of what you'll find when you go into the test center, what the test exactly looks like, how it's broken down, those sorts of things. So, first thing, I like to think this is where all the myths come to die. I'm sure you've heard 147 horror stories about the Series 7, of which only about 32 of them are actually true. For example, there's actually not 250 questions, there are 260 questions. Every FINRA exam always contains additional experimental or beta questions that you are not graded for or against. Okay? As a matter of fact, you won't even know which ones they are. They are randomly dispersed throughout the exam, which is broken down into two parts. 130 questions, and you have 3 hours to complete each section, okay? For a total of 6 hours. Now, I tell people, predominantly, most people, on average, do not take the full 6 hours. The average is somewhere around 4 to 4.5. So you're looking at about 2 hours per session. Okay? Generally, if it takes you 6 hours, it's not always a good thing. That oftentimes means people are overthinking, overanalyzing some of the questions. The pass rate does start to decline precipitously the closer you get to those 6 hours. Now, I'm not saying you can't pass if it takes you 6 hours, just telling you that the pass rate isn't as good. So you want to get through those questions, obviously, and also have an additional time to review some of the questions that perhaps were a little bit more difficult. Okay? Now, of the 250 questions that are graded, you must answer any 180 correctly. Doesn't matter which 180, any 180 questions will do. The passing score is 72%. Essentially, when you complete the exam, you get your little hard copy printout, you'll get your score, and of course the most important score we're looking for is that P. P for pass. You'll either get a P or not a P. We're looking for the P. It doesn't really matter if it's 72%, 82%, 92%. It all means a P. Okay? Now, what are they going to be testing us on? Well, a little bit of everything. One of the most difficult parts of the Series 7 is it is so diverse. It covers so much content. But there are areas of concentration. When you come out of the test, after you've completed all 260 questions, you will have a certain feel for certain contents that appeared more often than others, such as, number one, suitability. Now, that's a pretty generic term. It can cover a lot of different things. Anything that involves the broker-dealer and or the registered rep and the customer relationship. Setting up and handling accounts, processing trades, processing orders, confirmation statements, okay? Any relationship between the customer and the broker-dealer or you, the rep, can kind of fit under that category. As well as what most people think of when they think of suitability are making suitable recommendations, which of course there's quite a few of those. Number one feedback from people when they walk out of that test center is suitability, suitability, suitability. Number one. After suitability, of course, everybody's favorite topic, options, and municipal bonds, munis. There are, generally speaking, about 20 to 25 in each of these categories, both options and munis. Okay? I'm one of the types where options come very easy to me. I have an actual, a very secret method of handling Series 7 option questions. The average score for folks through my class on options is generally 80%. If you get this little secret mad method for options, if you can get options, you'll be actually wishing and hoping for more. Because once you get them, they're pretty easy. They're not as daunting or as intimidating as most people think. So that's a good thing. Okay? Also, mutual funds, variable annuities, and or limited partnerships, or as the test refers to them as DPPs, direct participation programs. These tend to be the areas that most people will get a majority of questions from. Suitability, options, munis, mutual funds. These are always the areas when people walk out of the test they always talk about. Okay? Number 1, number 2, number 3, and pretty much in that order. Okay? So if you want a core for the exam, there it is. I mean, that's got to be at least half the exam in those content areas alone. Okay? So you want to do pretty good. And generally in my classes, I like to concentrate on the large portions of the test. Because again, we have to score relatively well in these areas, right? So that we can, so all the other content areas that have 3 to 5 questions on, which are important, but these are the ones you really got to know, okay? Now, also, how best to study and pass your FINRA exam. So I've written a couple of blogs on this. They're out there in the internet world. However, let's go through a basic how to study and pass your FINRA exams. When I first got hired at a small firm in Portland, Oregon, long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, the boss says to me, "Here, read this. Take a test." I said, "Sure, okay." So I took the 600-page textbook, which prior to the internet age was all I had. I read that thing cover to cover. I had nothing else. As a matter of fact, I read it cover to cover 3 times, all 600 and some pages. Okay? The last time through the textbook, I actually took notes on every unit, every chapter that I read. I swear to this day, that's what got me past that exam. Because for me, if I write it, I tend to remember it. Now, in these days, there's far more tools that are at your disposal to help you pass this thing. One of those, of course, being a video course. Okay? Now, what I would recommend, instead of reading that textbook cover to cover, which I would not wish on my worst enemy, 600 pages, I mean, how much of that are you going to retain? That's why I had to go through it 3 times. Instead, why not take it unit by unit, or chapter by chapter, right? So, read through unit 1. And of course, you can use the video course. A lot of other publishers also have videos as well. Read, watch a video on unit 1 only. Then, go on their online to their practice questions and do 20 questions. That's it. 20. Not 120. You don't want to dilute the core content of Unit 1 material. Okay? Then, of course, Unit 2. 20 questions. Read, watch videos. 20 questions on Unit 2. Then, depending on what material you are using, what publisher you're using, and if they allow you to customize your practice exams, then you want to do Units 1 and 2 combined, 25 questions. That way, not only are you building, but you're also reinforcing at the same time. Okay? Then, of course, Unit 3, read, watch videos, 20 questions on Unit 3. See, the reason why we're only doing 20 questions, again, we don't want to dilute the core content, and, of course, we're also having the opportunity to do additional ones through our reinforcements. So again, Unit 3, read and video, 20 questions. And then units 1 through 3, you want to do 35 questions. Okay? So again, add and reinforce. Unit 4, same process, read and videos, 20 questions, and then units 1 through 4. You get the idea what we're doing here? I refer to this as the inverted pyramid. You're adding and reinforcing, adding and reinforcing, adding and reinforcing as you go. That, my friends, is the best way to obtain and retain as much of this information as possible. And you're not having to go through all 600 pages of that content at one time. Because again, there's just no way you can retain it doing it that way. Okay? So you got to get through that material the best you can. This is by far the most efficient method of doing it. Once you've gone through all of that content, the second step now is take a class, such as TestGeek Exam Preps Series 7 video course. If you have a live course somewhere in your city, that always works as well. Be careful, hopefully they're not sitting in chairs reading PowerPoint slides to you. But if you can take a class that gives you what you need to know for the exam. Okay? I always like to think my courses are a bridge between the text material and the real exam, or what I like to refer to as the test world. Because what's on the test isn't exactly the same as you're looking at in your textbooks and your practice questions. The Series 7 is copyrighted material. It is not to be duplicated, and FINRA actually scrutinizes it pretty closely. So no one's allowed to duplicate test questions. Now, if you ask me, I think they're pretty close between a lot of the publishers and the real test. However, a lot of people don't see that. There is enough of a difference between the two that some folks might get lost in that. So again, what I'd like to do in the class is try to create a bridge. What's on the test, how it shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. Okay? That's it. How does this stuff apply to your real job? Well, I got two answers to that. I don't know, and I really don't care. That's not my role. My role is to get you that P, right? So, what's on the test, how it shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. Okay? Those are the three critical steps that any good class should contain. Okay? Now, speaking of which, how to answer Series 7 test questions on the test. It's not like college. We're not reading blue book exams. Okay? There is a path of least resistance that we must all take in order to successfully pass the 7. Okay? And that path begins right there. Keep it simple. The more you think, the more you sink. Paralysis by analysis. I have to tell you, if you're not already aware of this, okay, knowing how to take this test is easily the difference between a 68 and a 78. Multiple choice exams have a set structure to them. They are structured in a linear format, sort of like A plus B equals C, right? Or whatever. The problem with that, of course, is those variables are often included with a lot of superfluous, distracting material. And the correct answer, let's say it's 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? Well, you see one answer choice, it says 13. One answer choice, it says, well, it may be 4 sometimes, except when there's 2 full moons in the month of May, okay? Which kind of says, Then there's one answer choice, it says 63, and then one answer choice, it says the square root of 16. Notice, There's not a straight answer that just says 4. Okay? That one, of course, is very close, but they put these qualifiers on it, which rationally may sound good to you, but of course is not a correct answer. And they use an ambiguous synonym for the correct answer. This is the type of games that they like to play on these standardized, structured exams. Okay? 2 of the answer choices you can almost always readily eliminate, and then it always comes down to 2. Okay? So that's why I said, you got to know how to take the test. It's easily worth 10 points to you on this exam. Okay? So keep it simple. All we're looking for is our variables and what we know. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, or some synonym thereof. Okay? And be careful of these answer choices trying to allure you to something else. Okay? Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you. Okay? You can very easily do that. And as we go through this content, I'll show you exactly some examples of this and then what they try to do to you. Okay? Okay, so that's step 2. Take a class. It's all about the test world. Who cares how this affects you in the real world? Okay? Now, step 3 to this process. Find some good practice finals. If they're good, that means they correlate to what you will actually score on the real test. Typically within about 5%. Okay? TestGeek exam prep, I think, of course, I would think this, has probably one of the best practice finals out there. You should find it attached as a downloadable PDF at the end of one of your lessons here. Okay? But of course, all the other publishers have them as well. And again, you want them to correlate usually within 5% of what you score on the real test. Okay? Actually, what you want them to do is be 5% more difficult than the real test. Therefore, if you're scoring a 75 on your practice finals, on average, you'll score somewhere near 80 on the real test. That's how they're supposed to work. It's how they're designed. I know from my practice final, TestGeek exam preps, about 98% of the people who have passed my final have passed the real test. That's the kind of correlation you're looking for. Okay? So you got to find some good practice finals, and then step 4, of course, get this thing out of your life. Pass the test the first time. We don't like Series 14s. That's the Series 7 twice. Okay? So we want to get this thing done the first time. And I'm telling you, this is the process required. Any deviation increases your risk. I'm not going to say you can't pass it doing it your own method, but this, I know, is going to ensure you the best chance of passing your test. Okay? We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get into the material. I'll see you real soon. Take care.